Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What is up, everyone? Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, mixed edition this week. We got the NCAA College Football Playoff Semifinals going on with Wild Card Weekend for the NFL. So we're going to just mix it up because it was only 2 games for college. It wasn't really necessary to do separate episodes this week. We did the same thing last year. So here we are. Joining as always, co-host Reese Downing. Reese, what's going on?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
If you saw what happened Sunday night, pretty good. That was
different
performance.
I was going to say different game in the second half than the first half.
Yeah, and it was one of those games as a Lions fan, you just sit there and you wait. And it's like, at some point, Justin Jefferson's going to torch us. At some point, we're going to lose this game. That's the same old Lions mentality. But Dan Campbell, the changes are there. Aaron Glenn's defense was my God, it was absolutely unbelievable in that game. And the offense did enough. So overcame some turnovers and won the game. Most important game probably in, I couldn't even tell you how long for the Lions. So 2 home games away. We'll see what happens as we get closer. Obviously, we're not playing this week. We get to rest up, which is much needed and very nice. So we'll go from there.
Not to mention that 5 seed schedule is brutal.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, Minnesota being a 14-win team is now going to play the Rams on the road. Like, I mean, we do joke a lot about how it's not really a road game when you play the Rams and Chargers, but still, like, that's not a team. Minnesota's home environment is much different, and it would be a much different game if they were the home team in that one.
Yeah.
We are going to kick this one off with the college stuff first. Just some little news and notes. First, before we get into that, we'll introduce the guest. You guys have seen them before. They were here. Carter wasn't here last week, but they have been with us here in the last few weeks. Both big Notre Dame fans. We'll start with Scott. Scott, what did you think of the Notre Dame win last week?
Really, it was more dominating than what I expected. Really did not expect Georgia to be stymied, especially in the run, with as big as their offensive line was compared to Notre Dame. The television crew went out of the way to point that out several times during the telecast. Was the size difference, but that didn't seem to matter. And one of the things they noticed is just probably for the first time in a generation of Notre Dame fans, they just outsmack somebody on the biggest stage, which is a wonderful thing for future seasons, future games. We're looking forward to the rest of the season, but that was such a wonderful, dominant performance.
Yeah, and joining us as always, our friend Andrew Carter. Carter, I know you had to be thrilled with what you saw. What are your thoughts on the game from last week?
Definitely. I think we finally got over the BK PTSD, Brian Kelly in a big game like that. It seems like every time we've got to that stage, we've got our asses kicked, and we kind of gave the ass whooping this time a little bit. Coach Free completely outcoached Smart, which was kind of surprising. I was really surprised at how the defensive line, like Scott said, manhandled their O-line. Man, they had those tackles on skates for most of the night. And it was just an awesome performance on the biggest stage yet. Let's see what happens this week.
They talk about winning those middle 8 minutes in between the second and third quarter. They did 17 points in 54 seconds was just insane to me. With you guys being tied, what was it? You tied at 3 late in the second. Then you nail that 58-yarder, strip sack, fumble recovery, 13-yard touchdown, and then the kick return touchdown to start the third quarter. I mean, that swung the game. At that point, I was like, this game's over with. It was crazy.
Yeah, and anyone that listened all year, I've talked kind of a lot of shit about Georgia's offense this year and how terrible they've been. And I kind of bought into some of the media hype about maybe Gunnar Stockton would come in and be able to change a little bit of it. But he kind of lived up to what I said last week, where I was like, he's pretty inaccurate in the short time he did play. And that's a huge stage to just come in and all of a sudden expect to be a superstar. Like, he was not good. Georgia's offense still was not good. And I kind of I didn't expect it to be a blowout, but I was pretty big on Notre Dame winning that game. And that was one of the main reasons why. Georgia's offense just, I think they need to figure something out for next season. I mean, well, when we get to the portal moves, obviously there's going to be a couple big things that they've done already, but it was kind of a blowing sign when Georgia's receivers are all unheard of. And I think even Beavis last week mentioned like no one knows a single receiver's name on Georgia.
I can't believe Smart. So he iced Mitch Jeter on that 48-yard field goal, and then gets the ball backed up with 47 seconds, and drops his quarterback in the first time starting, gives us an opportunity for the strip sack, which was just completely.
I didn't understand that either.
Kind of set him up for failure in my eyes, but
I thought the same thing when that was going on. I didn't understand that play call at all. All right, so we're going to jump into a little news before we get into this week's games. Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty today did declare for the NFL draft. There was really no hesitation in my mind. I don't think anyone was expecting him to be back at Boise State next year, but he did have the eligibility, just like everyone else in college football for the next 50 years, it seems. But he is going to the draft, so see if he ends up being a first-round draft pick. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has kind of changed a lot of people's mind in the NFL about how valuable first-round draft picks can be at running back position. And even Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Yeah, I say another first-round pick that's having a lot of success. Northern Illinois, we do talk a lot about the MAC on this show. They have announced today they are leaving the MAC to join the Mountain West Conference in 2026. It is a football-only move. When they get to that Mountain West Conference, it is going to look completely different than it is now because most of that conference is going to be in the Pac-12 by then. So the conferences are going to look very crazy. And then UMass was already planning on coming in to join the MAC. So the MAC really isn't losing a team. Well, depends. We know what we say about UMass on this podcast, but
drop the U and the M.
Right. They're technically not losing a team number wise, but Northern Illinois and UMass are very different programs when it comes to college football. Currently, the top 10 portal classes, I'm just going to go in reverse order. Number 10 was Wisconsin. Number 9, Nebraska. Number 8, Florida State. Number 7, Mississippi State. Number 6, Kentucky. Number 5, Ole Miss. Number 4, Texas A&M. Number 3, Auburn. Number 2, Texas Tech, which is a little surprising. And number 1, LSU. So anyone that's followed any of our portal episodes in the past, very familiar names here. It's kind of always the same teams every year in this, it seems like. What they do with it is here and there. Some notable portal moves. I talked a few weeks ago about how this was probably the best quarterback in the portal. Washington State quarterback John Mateer. He is going to Oklahoma. Me and Reese were talking earlier about how Oklahoma's whole team is in the portal. But it is kind of interesting to me because they did somehow still land one of the better players in the portal, John Mateer, the quarterback. USC, this was a big move, what I was referencing earlier when it comes to Georgia. USC wide receiver Zachariah Branch and his brother safety Zion Branch are going to Georgia. Zachariah Branch is an absolute stud. He can fly. I think this is a huge get for Georgia, especially with what we just talked about. Their receivers are kind of unheard of. There was another one today that kind of sparked it even more. Texas A&M wide receiver Noah Thomas is also going to Georgia. So putting Noah Thomas with Zachariah Branch in there is worlds different than what they were already experiencing this year. I think that will be a huge boost to Georgia's offense, especially with how disastrous it was this year. Cal quarterback Fernando Mendoza is going to IU. Coach Sig bringing in another nice quarterback. He was very good at Cal. They will miss him dearly. NC State wide receiver Casey Concepcion is going to Texas A&M. Alabama running back Justice Haynes is going to Michigan. Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman, which ended up being their backup at the end of the season, he's going to Houston. And just today, South Dakota State quarterback Mark Granowski is going to Iowa. He was known after those guys committed. He was known as the best quarterback left in the portal. So we'll see if he can live up to what Mr. Water Polo did at Iowa for us. But there were a few notable moves here. Obviously, there's thousands more of them that we're not going to get into at this point in the season. But just out of the moves and the rankings, what are some of you guys' thoughts on this? We'll start with Carter.
I got a couple thoughts. First off, the 4 teams that are still alive, I think they've been relatively quiet. I know Notre Dame has been behind the scenes making some moves, and I'm sure the other teams, I haven't heard them too much. But with Notre Dame, I think quantity over quality, or quality over quantity, is a big thing. If you look at this past game against Georgia, Mitch Jeter was a transfer, had the 3 big field goals. Oben, transfer from Duke, had the strip sack. Leonard, obviously, transfer from Duke. I mean, they had Harrison with the kickoff return. I mean, those transfers, they haven't been great all year, but they stepped up when we needed them, especially with the amount of injuries. So I think you got to be careful in the portal these days. People going all willy-nilly. I think it kind of bit Florida State in the ass this year. But you can really transfer your I don't know, your talent on your team very quickly. So it'll be interesting the further we go here.
Yeah, I don't really necessarily think that the portal's what cost Florida State this year. I think it was the lack of a quarterback, which I think that was a miss in the portal. That was I know that DJ wasn't our number one, and then as the season went on, though, actually, I don't know if DJ was even the blame. I mean, there was so much wrong with the situation. If you want to say the portal in the aspect of they saw the guys the year before go absolutely dominant and think that they were going to come in and do the exact same thing, then I guess probably we could say that. But I just think it's the same teams every year. Like I've changed my perspective on the portal. I'll tell you that the last 2 years as I've watched it, I've absolutely loved what Florida State's done. I mean, obviously 2 years ago, the guys we brought in are literally pretty much every single one of them starting in the NFL right now. So it was kind of a different class in that aspect where last year's wasn't as good. But this year's class is becoming really damn good. And it's hard for me because I want to be excited about it. But then I'm also like, it's kind of like recruiting classes, like recruiting rankings. Like when you see, oh, we got the number 2 class, it's like awesome. But then what? 3 of those guys end up being good and half of them transfer. And then it's kind of like a learning curve in college football, being a fan. Even like 2 years ago, I was like, oh, the portal's the greatest thing on earth. And last year I'm like, but again, it's how much is the portal? How much is it coaching? How much? There's so much going into everything. College football, I don't understand how these coaches are doing it right now, to be honest. Like it's got to be the hardest job. I mean, I know they're making millions, so it's hard to like be like, oh, yeah, we feel sorry for them. But like, that's a changing environment. That's almost an unwinnable situation in every way.
It's difficult to even get to. Go ahead, Carter.
It's hard to build the culture of the team, the identity of the team when you're rotating so many players through there. I think you got to build through high school recruiting first, and then supplement it a little bit with the transfer portal, which it's a balancing act and kind of depends. You got to really scout the players that you're going after. I think make sure their program fits, especially in Notre Dame's case.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of all the stuff too, because these guys transfer and say they're going to go somewhere, and then 2 days later they're like, actually, I'm decommitting and going somewhere again. So, I mean, when we come back to this in the spring, 30% of what we've been reporting on is going to be changed. So there's, it's college football is pretty chaotic, especially during the off season.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this ruling, I think it's in April. I really hope that it does actually set some true boundaries to what can go on here and make this make a little bit more sense year after year as opposed to what we're at right now.
That's no wonder more head coaches aren't going to the NFL, so they don't have to deal with the constant roster turn and burn and all the other stuff going on.
Yeah, it definitely is taking coaches out of the game. I mean, look at what is his name? The Virginia basketball head coach. I truly cannot remember his name right now.
Tony Bennett.
Bennett, and then Jim Larinaga in Miami just like last week, right in the middle of the season, is just like, yeah, I'm done. He's like, I can't do this anymore. So a lot of the older coaches that were kind of set in their ways, I mean, I think it's just going to run them out, which is kind of cool to me because I like the aspect of Bill Belichick going to college for that aspect because I want to see what he does and bringing Lombardi in, which was an NFL GM, bringing kind of the NFL atmosphere to college is kind of the reverse theory of this. And I'm really interested to see how that works because I think that can be successful also. It's just, it's obviously a learning curve for everyone, but I think it'll be fun to watch. And of all people to be doing that experiment, Bill Belichick doing it makes it kind of hilarious, but we'll see how everything ends up with all of that. So let's get to the 2 college football playoff games. The winners of these games will be moving on to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on Monday, January 20th at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. So the first game, the College Football Playoff semifinal at the Capital One Orange Bowl, is Thursday, January 9th at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Number 7 Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite versus number 6 Penn State. Over/under is 45.5. Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida. Scott, give us the pick.
Well, I'd was happy with last week's result. I think this week is going to be a much game that falls right down those lines. very much a defensive battle. Turnovers are really going to play a key in this game. Both teams have really good running games, great defenses, quarterbacks that have some question marks. So we'll see, and a non-existent wide receiver core that occasionally pops his head out. So I think you take all that, put in a blender. 1 point spread seems to be about right. And I'm definitely going to stay on Notre Dame's bandwagon and getting ready to go to Atlanta.
Carter?
Yep, I think it's similar as that game last week when you're looking at it. It's probably going to end up to be about a pick 'em. They're very evenly matched, both good defenses, both want to run the ball. I think a couple of the keys for Notre Dame, you got to somehow figure out how to contain Warren. I don't know if you'll stop Tyler Warren, the tight end. He's their best pass catcher for sure. And then the two running backs, we've done a great job with stopping the run, really shut it down against Georgia. Got to keep that going, and then try to pressure Aller. If we get him to turn the ball over, then that definitely helps us out. On the other side, this is a stat I came across today that's pretty wild. Is Penn State's a great defense, but they're a pretty poor tackling team.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3 games, they've given up 67 missed tackles, and Notre Dame's the number 1 team in the country on yards after contact running the ball. Now, both teams kind of health question marks. I think Love's going to play. I don't know if he'll be 80% or what. And then Abdul Carter, he's got like a shoulder injury. Both of them kind of question marks. But obviously, I'm going to roll with the Irish. I think it will be close, and then we'll pull away for about a 10-point win in the fourth.
Reese?
Yeah, I mean, echoing a lot of the same things that have already been said here. Both these teams have really good run games. Notre Dame's rush D looked really good last week, even without Riley Mills in the center. I think this game's going to come down to turnovers. Irish have plus 18 for the season. Penn State's plus 10. So there's a gap there, but they're still good at generating turnovers. And I think whoever wins the turnover battle is going to get it done. Tight spread, tight game, but I'm with the mascots here. I'm going to go Notre Dame minus the points to win and cover.
Yeah, most of the stuff I had was pretty much what you guys said too. The only thing, Tyler Warren against the Notre Dame secondary to me is one of the main keys of this game. I do assume they'll put Schuler on him. It seems like Schuler's kind of been their man-to-man guy when it comes to tight ends, and he's been very successful for the last few weeks. Quarterback, I feel like we're kind of at a push here at a pick 'em. I feel like they're kind of both the same player. I do like Aller in the offense, Kotelnicki's offense, but Leonard's been playing decent too. So Carter's thing is kind of what my decider of the game was, though, where he said their missed tackles. It's not even just their missed tackles. Their D is not good at stopping the run, and it really hasn't been all year. And I think that's where Notre Dame abuses them. So because of that, I think that's the main difference of the game. I'm on Notre Dame, and I don't think this is that close. 10's probably about right, honestly, like what Carter said. I don't think this is anywhere near a 1, 2, 3 point game at all. The second game of the semifinals, the college football playoff semifinal, it's Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. What a name for that. Friday, January 10th at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Number 8, Ohio State is a 5.5-point favorite versus number 5, Texas. Over under is 53.5 at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Scott?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game as well. I think it's two like teams. They want to do the same thing. Both have questions at the quarterback position. They can have really good games. They can have really good quarters. They can have really good throws, and then they can have some mind-numbing question marks that go along with that. Both teams want to run the ball. Defensive line, both teams built from that out. But can, like everybody else, once Ohio State got rolling, can they stop those wide receivers? Has Ohio State turned its run first, basically flipped it over, and now a throw first, and the nice comfort of the Cotton Bowl? We'll see. But I think it's going to be a good game. I think Texas is going to bring it. I don't have a lot of bases on, but they're in the Final Four, so that works for me. I'm going to go Ohio State in the win, but I really think Texas is going to make it entertaining and I don't know if it's close in the fourth quarter, but I think Texas make it at least entertaining.
Do you think they'll keep it within 5.5?
No. I think it's a 7 to 10 point game at the end. I just think Ohio State, they've got some magic. They're on a roll right now. Earlier in the season, I definitely was not on the Ohio State bandwagon. Michigan showed what you can do when you just keep punching them in the mouth. And Ohio State wanting to get fixated on showing they're tougher and what happened to them there. But I think they've learned the lesson, and their three wide receivers are better than Texas's secondary.
Carter.
Yep. Should be a good game. The spread's interesting to me. If you would have looked at the look ahead when Ohio State lost to Michigan, I believe Texas was like a 5 or 6 point favorite in the look ahead for this matchup, a possible look ahead. Now it's flipped completely on its head because Ohio State has hit the literal light switch and turned this offense on. Jeremiah Smith looks unstoppable. What they did to Oregon really surprised me. But I wonder if that recency bias isn't involved a little bit there with that movement. So I look at what ways could Texas give Ohio State trouble. I think if they can get some pressure on Will Howard, get that D line going, because Ohio State offensive line is not that good. They'd have to get an early lead, get their run game going, and pressure Howard. At the end of the day, though, I still don't think that Texas is going to have enough. If you look and see who they've beaten this year, it's really no one. So Ohio State's going to cover, but I'd love for Texas to win.
Reese.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the game last week, that game got out of hand quickly, and it's the same thing that happened with the Tennessee game. Ohio State has been jumping out to considerable leads, and then that's allowed them to get more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. You saw that in the Oregon game last week. They finished with 8 sacks, and part of that was because they had built such a substantial lead. They were after to kind of pin their ears back and go after the quarterback a little bit more and take some more risks there. Will Howard only needed 17 of 26 to go over 300 yards and 3 scores last week. I don't see the Texas secondary being too much different so long as Will Howard continues to get time. And Chip Kelly is digging deep into his bag of tricks there. He's gotten definitely more aggressive on his offensive play calling. And another thing overall with Ohio State's defense, Jake, you and I were really high on them to start the season, and then they kind of fell off. We kind of lost some confidence in them, but They flipped the script. I mean, this past game, they held Oregon to under 4 yards a play, and they've been averaging 5.5 all season. So if this is what we can expect, then I mean, we saw what Arizona State did. Arizona State took Texas all the way to the finish, and I think Ohio State's got more talent on their roster than what Arizona State does. I'm with the group here. I don't see how Texas is going to get out this with a win. 7-10 point victory is probably what we're looking at here. Maybe get up to 13, but I'm going to take Ohio State here minus the points.
So before I make my pick, I would like to throw a shout out to Arizona State. Every one of their guys are coming back next year on offense. It was announced today pretty much. I can't wait for that team next year. It's going to be awesome.
It has a lot to do with the coach.
That too. Yeah. And actually, we're going to get off subject for a second because we talked about the portal. We've talked about some of the things Kenny Dillingham has said in like his press conferences and stuff, and like why he just gets it. One of his players announced today they were going in the portal, and he literally sent a tweet out talking about how good the player was and to like go be great somewhere else. Like he just gets it. Like we talked a few minutes ago about like the accustomed or I don't know what becoming more accustomed to the situation in college football now. And I think he is probably leading the charge in what coaches should be. Going with what you guys said, though, about this game, I kind of just have 2 notes that really I came up with. I'm a little different than you guys, though, on one thing. I think this Texas secondary can actually handle this Ohio State receiving squad. I know Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith, but it's one player. Ibuka is Ibuka. He's good, but Texas secondary is pretty damn good. The only problem I have is in the quarterback situation. I think Ewers is a little worse than Howard. I know that might be weird to say because Howard's been kind of awful this year outside of the last few weeks. But Ewers against cover 2 has not been good. And Ohio State is playing a lot of primary cover 2 right now, which is a huge problem for Ewers. So that's where I'm kind of having my trouble making this pick. this Ohio State team is really reminding me of like 2014 when Zeke came on. They were the 4 seed, or I think they were the 4 seed in the playoffs, and they came out. They beat Alabama, then they beat Oregon in the national championship. Like that team, no one even thought they should have made the playoffs, and they ended up winning the national championship because they got hot at the right time. And that kind of seems like what this team has done. I know me and you, it's kind of weird to say that because we both had Ohio State as our preseason national champion, but within about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we said there's no way in hell this team's making the national championship.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They have flipped quite a switch. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to pick a winner of this game. I'm going to pick Texas to cover this spread, though, because I think Texas can cover this spread. I honestly think I don't want to pick it because Ohio State is my preseason national championship pick, and it's kind of ridiculous. But I think Texas might win this game, as weird as it sounds.
You think Arch Manning gets any carries?
I think he will. Yeah,
kind of mixed up a little bit.
I think he's got to play. I think they've got to go I think this has got to be an all-out attack. This is a quasi home game for them. I know Ohio State fans travel well, but this is in Arlington. Like this is close. And a little bit of rumors of Sark going to the NFL. So maybe he wants to get one before he leaves. Like, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to coaching. He could already have an NFL job secured and no one knows yet. And the day after this game, it gets announced. So if they lose. So, I mean, I just think it's an all-out attack for Texas at this point. Ohio State, because I've watched them all year, does still hold some doubt in my mind. I know they've been hot the last few weeks, but I've watched them so much this year. It's just hard to be like, yeah, they're going to kill someone. I mean, I know they've done it the last few weeks, but I think Oregon kind of got the shaft in that. I think we need to reseed this playoff in the second round, but that's a different story for a different day. I do want to ask you guys, though, since you guys both picked Ohio State. So what would be your thoughts? I know Carter mentioned getting over the hangover of like bad bowl game losses and stuff, but what would your guys' thoughts be going into a national championship game against Ohio State?
So we played them last year pretty close.
Right.
And if we would have had 11 men on the field, we would have beat them. Now, I know it's not the same team.
Right.
They got Will Howard. I don't know. I think we could definitely do it, but Jeremiah Smith will keep me up at night because as much press man we play, like I think if we had Benjamin Morrison and we had Bubakar or Traore, like our full complement of players, I'd feel way better. I would imagine Ohio State would be favored probably about 5.5 in that as well. So I'd much rather play Texas for what it's worth.
Well, I certainly would rather play Texas, but like Carter said, Ohio State last year, Notre Dame played right there and actually should have the year before they played Ohio State in the really right there. So talent-wise, scheme-wise, they just might do a pretty good job matching up with Ohio State. Just that pressure. Ohio State's offensive line has at times leaked like a sieve. And so I'd give Notre Dame probably about as fighting chance against Ohio State as anybody. And I think that they'd actually be favored against Texas.
Yeah, obviously we'll be discussing this more next week when it becomes reality, if it does. But I'm surprised that you guys would rather play Ohio State just schematic wise, because Texas will play press man. And they can load the box to try to stop Notre Dame's run, where Ohio State will not do that. So if I was Notre Dame, the way they play offense, I would rather play Ohio State's defense and Texas's defense, just the way they play. But we'll have that discussion at a later time. We'll see what happens when it gets there. So that will wrap up our college football playoff semifinal portion of it. We will now flip over to NFL so we can talk some NFL playoff football.
All right. Well, let's do a quick recap from last week. Jake finished out at 10-6 in week 18, hit his lock with Tampa Bay, missed his dog with Jacksonville. Jake, you finished the year out 143 in 125.
Hell yeah.
I went 9-7 last week. I missed my lock with Green Bay and my $100 or $1,100 underdog pick in the Browns, so I knew it wasn't going to happen. I finished 140 and 128 for the year. So both of us again ended up over 500 picking NFL games on Tuesday nights. So sometimes Monday nights. So I'll take it. Jumping into week 18 results, recapping just these games real quick. Ravens beat the Browns 35-10. Bengals beat the Steelers 19-17. Panthers beat the Falcons in overtime 44-38. That was a really fun game. I don't know if you guys caught any of that watching Penix go up against Bryce Young. I do think Carolina's found their quarterback the way he's played the past couple weeks. Jake, you look like you were about to.
Yeah, so that was interesting to watch in real time because obviously, I mean, I have multiple shit going on constantly, but it was interesting to watch the Tampa game going on at real time with the Atlanta game because there was very meaningful minutes there. And as they were doing the coin flip for the coin flip for the other one is when Tampa decided to randomly throw a pass to Mike Evans that I was shocked. I was like, what? I mean, I get why they did it, but like everyone in the stadium knew what was coming there. How the hell the Saints didn't know what was coming, I'll never know. But if the Saints would have played that and picked it, they would have won the game. Like that was almost like a Mario Cristobal at Miami situation. Like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah, literally a $3 million gamble.
Yeah, this is a playoff bid. Like, I would rather make the playoffs and get. I mean, I know Mike Evans is loved and he should be, but like, this isn't like a 3-11 team that in a meaningless game. Like, this was a very meaningful game. Like, I was shocked that they did that.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. I did like the celebration that happened afterwards. The rest of his team members were excited about it. But yeah, that was a fun game. Panthers versus Falcons. Texans beat the Titans 23-14. Eagles beat the Giants 20-13. Colts beat the Jags in overtime 26-23. Commanders beat the Cowboys 23-19. Bears beat the Packers 24-22. Bucks beat the Saints 27-19. Pats beat the Bills 23-16. Chargers beat the Raiders 34-20. Cardinals beat the Niners 47-24. Broncos blanked the Chiefs. I don't think anybody saw that coming, even though we did know that they were going to set everybody 38-0. Seahawks beat the Rams 30-25. The Jets beat the Dolphins 32-20. We'll talk about that game here in just a second. And Jake's Lions beat the Vikings 31-9. Jake, before we jump into some of the other notes here, what's your thoughts and feelings on the Lions victory?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I mean, like I said earlier, it was scary because there was just that moment where you have to be like, at some point, this Minnesota offense is going to click. And I mean, God, Aaron Glenn, I will give him all the credit in the world. He brought pressure after pressure after pressure after pressure. And Darnold couldn't handle it. I mean, and it was perfect. It was a perfect game plan. I'll be honest, I don't want to play them a third time, which could happen in 2 weeks, just because anytime you play a team 3 times, it sucks. So, but yeah, 2 home games away from the Super Bowl. When all the injuries start happening, I thought there was no way in hell that this could happen. But like MCDC said, we remember the days of eating the molded bread, and here we are. So I love it. I can't wait for the playoff games. They're going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun atmosphere in Detroit. Mad respect to Mr. Eat 'em Up Lions guy, who's unfortunately not with us.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. A couple other quick updates. The Eagles decided to sit Saquon Barkley in Week 18, eliminating his chance to play his name in the record books and pass Eric Dickerson on the single-season rushing record. During Barkley's interview, he seemed a little disappointed that he wasn't playing and not being able to go out there and at least make an effort to try to set the record. Carter, you agree with the Eagles' decision to set Barkley, or do you think they should have at least given him an opportunity to make this decision on his own if he wanted to go out there and go after it?
I tend to agree with the organization. I think what's most important is winning a Super Bowl, and they brought in Saquon to do that. It sucks. What was how far was he off?
He was
102.
101 yards away from setting the record.
Yeah, that's tough. I think I'd rather him, especially with Hurts being banged up. I think you just keep Saquon healthy because you never know what could happen. But
yeah. Scott, Jake, you guys think any differently?
No, I'm all in agreement of sitting him. The squeeze isn't worth the juice. He has a personal victory for Saquon versus the other 53 guys on the field, plus coaches, plus administrative staff. There's several hundred people involved in the Eagles organization for his one game. Yeah, it's now 17 instead of 16. So really, where your asterisk goes alongside that, I think it was the right move. You know, if it was 5-10 yards, okay, suit him up. First quarter, sit him down, but 101. You know, there's no guarantee he played the whole thing and still got 101. So I think it was the right move from the start.
Yeah, and it's not just Barkley either. Like that would have been the whole O line would have had to play. Like everyone would have had to play then. So I mean that's a whole different a whole different world. And yeah, Hurts still hasn't cleared concussion protocol, and it was a guarantee that they couldn't get the 1 seed. So they knew they were playing this weekend. So I think it was smart what they did. I mean I know it sucks, but I think it was a smart decision.
Yeah, another crazy story out of Week 18 is what happened in Miami. So reports are that in the fourth quarter, Tyreek Hill basically said, "I'm not available anymore." I believe he may have mentioned that he has an injury, but they basically just said that Tyreek refused to play in the fourth quarter. And then shortly after the game in a locker room interview, Tyreek announced that he is done in Miami. He said, "It's the first time I haven't been in the playoffs. I got to do what's best for me and my family, if that's here or wherever the case may be. I'm finna open that door for myself, and I'm opening the door. I'm out, bro." Since then, he has, I don't know if you guys saw this today, he updated his Twitter image to Antonio Brown running off the field with the deuces, but he put his face on Antonio Brown's body. Jake, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on what transpired after the game, and knowing Tyreek's history, you know, would you want him in a Detroit uniform?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he fits what we do, but I do think, I don't know. I saw a thing today that also said that in the meeting he didn't request a trade, like his end of year meeting. But I honestly, this seems like one of those situations where he ends up back in Kansas City. Like, I don't know. It just always seems to work out that way for the Chiefs, and I just have a feeling that that's what's going to end up happening. And I think they're the only team that would willingly probably take him at this point, knowing the situation. Or any, let's change it. Any good team that's going to willingly take him at this point.
Scott, Carter, you guys want to see him in an Indy uniform next year?
Absolutely not.
No, I'm good.
You've got to have us with that added, you know, everything that comes out. Yeah, I'm sure that once he's gone, more will. But if you don't have a strong locker room, and obviously Indianapolis does not, you know, with all the words coming out about late meetings, people skipping, you know, all this other nonsense, which I put directly on the coach and the GM, and the I learned today that they had Colts have 8 captains on their team. You know, almost 10% of their guys are captains. Give me a break. Yeah, Indianapolis is falling apart. Wheels coming off, and thank goodness Jim is on his airplane in, you know, Florida or wherever he is. He's getting some snow, but I'm not sure it's the frozen kind. Yeah, Kansas City might be the best place. Yeah, that seems like they've got a put together strong locker room, strong coach, GM that wouldn't put up with it to begin with. So Kansas City would be a good place for him to go. I look forward to seeing him play and possibly drafting him for my fantasy team, but Indianapolis is a no go.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week, I think it might be snowing on the inside of the Indianapolis Colts plane. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's stick in Indianapolis though. We're gonna touch base on all the coach firings and carousels and stuff, but let's talk retainments first. Perhaps more surprisingly, maybe not, the Giants did announce on January 6th that both head coach Brian Daboll and GM Joe Schoen is returning for a 4th season with the franchise. The Dolphins announced on January 5th that both Mike McDaniel and GM Chris Greer would be returning. And then after Indy's overtime win against the Jags on Sunday, owner Jim Irsay released a statement announcing that both Shane Steichen and fan favorite GM Chris Ballard would both be returning in 2025, despite acknowledging that he hears the fans' dissatisfaction and wish for a change in the regime. Thoughts on these guys running it back? Carter.
My initial thoughts are it's bullshit. I mean, there's no accountability in that building at all. Jim Irsay needs to go. Give it to the daughters. They need to completely clean house. But then when I think about it more, so Bradley's out. He was his contract expired anyways. The defense was the biggest problem of the year. You have a quarterback that everyone knows is a project. I know he can't stay healthy or anything like that, but let Steichen work with him one more year and run it back. But I I don't know. Ballard has been, this is his what, 8th year? I mean,
Yep.
no one's had a long a leash as Chris Ballard has. It's absolutely wild to me, but I'm not surprised. I knew Jim Irsay wasn't going to do anything. He probably wouldn't have done anything with Bradley if his contract wasn't expired. So um, I don't know. They need to do some wholesale changes there and get some more accountability in that locker room for sure.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm kind of indifferent on the New York thing. They beat the Colts at the end of the year with just a garbage roster. Yeah, if I was going to start, rebuilding around Malik Neighbors, he's the guy I would actually want in Indianapolis, but obviously that's not an option. Miami, I'd definitely bring those guys back. It's the first time in Mike's career that he didn't go into the playoffs as a head coach. So, I don't see any structural problems. Miami seems to have a lot of injury issues year after year. I might look on that side of the house to see what they're doing wrong to work on fixing the injury issues. And as far as Indianapolis, I'm with Carter. Tear it down to the studs. By the time you get done, you should have five guys left on that roster, and start over. And I'm a definitely Anthony Richardson. It's not the guy that just he had the lowest completion percentage since Tim Tebow. That's telling you where Tebow ended up. That's where Richardson's going to end up. Projects are not for the NFL, especially at your quarterback position. It's time to start over, and the sooner they do it, the sooner they can return to a competitive team.
Jake, you got any thoughts? I know we've got a little bit of disagreement between Carter and the old ninja there on the value of Anthony Richardson, but
no, I just like the comparison because two of those guys went to the same school. It's amazing what you take when you get players from that shitty school. So that's tends to lead to the same result. It seems. Similar thoughts though. I don't even know if you call it Jim at this point. I think the daughters probably are running it for the most part, to be honest, at this point. But I think Carly is the main one that's going to run it. But I think it was probably time to go ahead and just clean house. I get giving the guys another year, but we talked just a few weeks ago. Like, this is the worst. Like, you can win this division. This division is not good. Like, you can come in and win this quickly. Very simple changes can win this division. And by going status quo and just being like, oh, well, we'll do this again. Like, I don't think that's a smart decision at this point. But maybe they have a draft pick plan for the next year. Maybe bring in another Manning to Indy. We'll see. So suck for Arch. Maybe that's their new plan.
I don't think that I don't think that has the same ring as Tank for Tua does, but yeah. All right. One quick update here down at the bottom before we jump into the coaching carousel stuff. Jair Alexander, cornerback out of Green Bay, sounds like he's going to be out for the season, as is wide receiver Christian Watkins, who they believe has possibly suffered a torn ACL in the game against Chicago last week. So a couple pretty key injuries for Green Bay as they head into the playoffs, and do not have an easy game in round one as they are traveling to Philly. So we'll see how that impacts the team there. Let's take a look at roundup. This is 6:40 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. So this is what we've got right now. Starting with the head coaches that have been fired. Obviously, Matt Eberflus, Robert Saleh, and Dennis Allen all were fired in the middle of the season. So Chicago, the New York Jets, and the Saints have coaching openings. Since Sunday, Gerard Mayo has been fired after one season with the New England Patriots. Doug Peterson has been fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was just announced shortly before we went live that Antonio Pierce has been fired as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders after one season with the team. A little more than one season. The first season as the official head coach. Coordinator-wise, offensive coordinator Shane Waldron, he was obviously fired earlier in the year before Eberflus was fired. Offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb has been fired after 1 year in Seattle. Offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey has been fired out of Cleveland. Defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo from Cincinnati has been fired. We just talked about Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator in Indianapolis, has been let go. Special teams coordinator Brian Schneider has been let go from San Francisco. And the GM in Tennessee, which was shocking to at least prime time, Rand Carthon has been fired from Tennessee. They did announce that they are retaining Brian Callahan for at least one more season. They also announced shortly after Antonio Pierce was let go that GM Tom Telesco is going to be sticking around in Vegas for at least one more year. So these are all the coaches that have been let go so far. Let's take a look at the list of the interview requests that we know of so far, starting with Chicago. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator out of Detroit. Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator out of Arizona. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator out of Detroit. Mike Kafka, offensive coordinator from the Giants. Minnesota's defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Mike Vrabel, who coached Tennessee Titans 2 years ago. Mike McCarthy, the Dallas Cowboys have been contacted by Chicago to see if they can interview their current head coach, Mike McCarthy, for that position. Defensive coordinator, Miami, Anthony Weaver. Todd Monken, Baltimore's OC. Joe Brady, Buffalo's OC. And David Shaw, senior executive in Denver. That is the current list for the Chicago Bears. Before we dive into the next team here, thoughts on which coach we think is going to land here? Who do you think is the best fit? Jake, we'll start with you.
I really don't know. Like this is probably the toughest one to pick. Chicago's the one I have like no true thought on because I don't think Ben's going there. This one's tough to me. Looking at this list, if I was Poles and I was making this decision for Chicago, I would probably go Joe Brady just because I don't think Ben's going there. But that's a tough one. Like there's no, I don't, Chicago's a disaster. Like I don't like what they're saying from there. Like I don't like what you hear coming out of the organization. So it's a tough one to pick. I'd like to see odds to know who the betting favorite was to go there right now. It might be Ben, but I don't think Ben's going there.
Well, let's flip the script here a little bit because we do have a lot of names that are repeated across the board here. Right now, we've got Chicago, New Orleans, New England, Jacksonville, the Jets, and the Raiders. All of those teams have a coach opening right now. You're an available coach. Which team do you want to land on?
New England.
Scott?
I have to agree. I think New England, you got your quarterback in place. Which, seeing so many of these guys coming in that they spend 3 years searching for a quarterback and then get let go because they can't find the right guy. New England probably followed by Chicago, although I'm not sold on Williams. He has indisputable talent, but I would say New England first, Chicago second.
Yeah, New England not only has the draft pick and Drake May, but they've got a ton of money too. Like they're a really good situation.
Carter?
Yeah, I disagree on New England. Yeah, you have Drake May there and you have the money, but their guy, Gerard Mayo, give him 1 year and then just out the door. To me, that signifies that they have someone. I'm sure it's probably going to be Vrabel already lined up. And then Chicago, to me, would be my favorite job. I think Caleb Williams is legit. He's got all the weapons there. New England has no weapons on that offense. I mean, there's no offensive line. There's so many more holes on New England. True, you have all that money. So to me, it's either Chicago or maybe Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, but they got a lame duck general manager there. And I don't know. I don't like these teams that are firing GMs and then bringing in a new GM and leaving the coach there. Isn't that the GM's job? Shouldn't he be able to be the one that hires the coach? Like it happened in Indianapolis. I think, what was it? Reich was already there, and then Ballard came in, or maybe it was Pagano. It's been a rotating door for a while.
Grigson hired Pagano. Then Grigson got fired. Pagano was left. They brought in Ballard. Ballard picked Reich. Then Reich got fired. Yeah, it's just been a clown show for a while. But I don't have any strong opinions.
For Chicago, I'd go all out on Ben Johnson. I don't know if he'll do it in conference there, and if not, you got to go offensive coach. I don't know, Kafka, Brady, out of those names. Maybe not. I wouldn't even be opposed to Mike McCarthy. He's built some pretty good offenses.
Yeah, I've got thoughts on Mike McCarthy, but I've been talking about him for 18 weeks, so I'll withhold any future commentary on that. I would be hesitant on the Chicago job just primarily because of what that division looks like right now. That's not going to be any easy division to step into, even with a guy like Caleb Williams at quarterback.
Well, their situation sucks. They didn't build their team for a Chicago team. Like
Right.
Their O-line sucks and their defense sucks. That's what's going to win in Chicago. That's
exactly. Yeah. But then, like you think about that on top of that, like you look at what Detroit has and what Minnesota has now. Minnesota, potentially they could change. We'll see if they retain Darnold long term. But Green Bay's got Jordan Love. I mean, a lot of these teams are very, very good, and I don't know how long the leash is going to be for Chicago. They've got a franchise history of not being able to find a good quarterback. I hope that's not the case now, because Caleb Williams, by all accounts, has the athletic ability and talent to be able to be a good quarterback, but they're going to have to surround him with guys that can protect him and more than, 1.5 receivers. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep everybody updated as things go along. Vegas is not listed here other than below, just because they had just announced that Antonio Pierce has been fired and there's not a formal interview request list out there. Outside of Chicago, I would not touch the New York Jets job with a 10-foot pole. It's crazy the amount of guys that they have to interview just to be able to find one person that's probably legitimately interested in going there. But
yeah, I think one of the interesting things with that Vegas spot is I think Brady's going to have a huge hand in it. And I think the timing might have been just right before Vrabel gets that New England job. If I was Vegas, they might try to go all out for Vrabel here and hope that in New England then would have to rely on Ben Johnson, because if Vrabel were to go to Vegas and Ben Johnson were to stay in Detroit, New England's, they don't have very many good options at that point then. And I think those are the two they're keying in on. I think Vrabel is the number one. I think that's the obvious answer there. And I'm really hoping that's the case, because I think if Vrabel goes there, I think there's a very, very, very good chance Ben Johnson's back in Detroit next year. I do think Aaron Glenn is going to be the coach of the Saints, though.
Yeah, I mean, like the Mike Vrabel thing seemed obvious, but they just really announced, Rappaport just released like 2 hours ago that he is being formally requested to be interviewed in New England. Ben Johnson, Byron Leftwich, and Pep Hamilton have been the only 3 guys on their list. So I definitely think that New England's got, obviously they have a short list on who they're going for, but I agree with the group here. I do think that they've got a name in mind, and my guess is it's probably Vrabel. All right. Let's take a quick look at the NFL draft. Now that the regular season is over with, the first 18 picks are set in stone until we obviously start seeing trades. Tennessee Titans have jumped up to the 1 spot. So Tennessee sits at number 1 and controls that pick. Cleveland is sitting at 2. The New York Giants are at 3. New England Patriots at 4. Jacksonville's at 5. Raiders are sitting at 6. Jets sitting at 7. Carolina Panthers at 8. New Orleans Saints at 9. Bears sitting at 10 spot. San Fran is at 11. Dallas rounds out the top 12. And then we have Miami, Indianapolis, Atlanta, Arizona, Cincinnati, and Seattle rounding out the top 18. Is there a team here that's not in the top 18 that we have a feeling may get aggressive, maybe is only a player or 2 away from really making noise in the playoffs next year, or maybe that's in the playoffs this year, but maybe just we feel like maybe has a piece or 2 missing, or maybe a guy that's on an expiring contract that they may try to move? Jake, you got any thoughts on that?
I think the thing we've got to watch is Minnesota. I think they could trade JJ McCarthy to one of these teams that are quarterback. I think JJ McCarthy's better than every quarterback available in this year's draft. I don't even think it's close. So if they're willing to do the deal with Darnold and get rid of McCarthy for one of these top picks, that's one move I think could be interesting. But other than that, no, not really.
Consensus that Cam Ward's probably going to be in that number 1 spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, once Combine comes, you always see crazy stuff. But I would say right now you would expect Ward at 1. It gets kind of interesting from there. I think 3 and 4 are really hoping Hunter and Tetairoa McMillan are there, because I think 3 and 4 will be both receivers. The Giants are going to love the fact that they can get one of those guys to pair with Neighbors and improve that offense even more. I do know they're going to be in the need for a quarterback, but I don't think the draft is the place to get it, to be honest. I'm not sold on any of these guys. But New England and Travis Hunter also, I know that a lot of people think he's going to play corner in the NFL, but watch him play corner in college. To me, he should be a receiver in the NFL. I think he's a god-awful corner. He gets burnt every time he plays a good receiver. He gets destroyed. So
that's why I've got him listed as a receiver here for that reason. So
yeah, I think he should play receiver in the NFL. And I think any three or four getting McMillan and Hunter would be pretty stoked for that. I don't know the thoughts of Shedeur going to Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland's known for shitty quarterbacks outside of Jameis, so Shedeur would fit right in with that to me. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting because the quarterbacks not being good are going to make a big deal. I think we're going to see a lot of crazy things happen.
Well, and Cleveland just announced that Deshaun Watson suffered a setback in his recovery from his Achilles injury. So they're kind of setting that up that he may be out all of next year, potentially, depending on how bad the setback is. Not that it.
I mean, yeah, he should never see the field again anyway.
I agree. But that's a considerable investment. It's an expensive car to park in the garage.
Yeah, but if you have the right, I mean, look at Denver. I mean, Denver did the same thing, and look what they did.
That's fair. Scott, looking at this top 20 list, or even outside of the top 20, your wish hitting at 14. Any of these guys stand out to you?
It's so tough to actually say. You look at teams like San Francisco and Cincinnati, who a year ago were right in the mix. Injuries derailed both those. Could Cincinnati, make a move? San Francisco make a move? Of all these teams listed that missed it, that probably. But Seattle, 10-win team, missed it. So how close are they? Is there a player that it's always hard to tell, especially in those outside the top 10 trying to make a decision. I think JJ McCarthy to New York would make a whole lot of sense. Him throwing bombs to Malik. I really like kind of that pairing. But as for Travis Hunter, he was a very good wide receiver. He played a lot of snaps, but I think the NFL is going to welcome him with a whole different perspective, and he's going to be one of these guys that disappears into the annals of who was that going forward as a professional.
Carter, what about you? You think you got anybody here in mind that you'd like to see the Colts land at 14?
Yep, he's about 6'6", and Notre Dame's playing him Thursday night. Tyler Warren. I'd love to see him. Our production out of the tight end room has been terrible this year. That they led the league in drops has just been awful. A couple other thoughts, real quick. The Darnold thing is going to be the first shoe to drop. I kind of be surprised if Minnesota re-signed him. They got a rookie quarterback that they really like. And when you have that big contract, it kind of hampers the rest of your team. So I would be surprised if they did it, but who knows? So wherever he goes, there's a lot of quarterback hungry teams out there. He's going to get paid one way or the other. And then once that happens, you'll kind of see where the rest of it shakes out. I'll be interested to see where Genty goes. I think he's definitely top 10 worthy. And there could be some teams interested to move up on him.
I hope he slides to 12. We'll see what happens there.
I think he'll definitely be there at 12. I just, man, that team's got some needs. I don't.
We definitely have some needs, but I mean, we've seen what's happened, and especially if McCarthy is going to stay.
Yeah,
we have to have an RB1, and I think we found that we could potentially have it in Rico Dowdle, but Rico's going to be a free agent, so I don't even know if he's going to be in a Dallas uniform next year, and we've got to get back to being able to start with a run first offense and not have Dak throwing the ball 45 times a game, because it's not a winning formula.
No, I agree. I just Genty does scare me in the NFL because of how much he touched the ball in college. That's the one thing that does kind of scare me a little bit, but he's a beast. So I think he'll be all right, but
all right. We have talked about non-games enough. Let's jump into it here. This is a quick look at what the playoff picture looks like. We're going to pick these games in just a second. But we do have Detroit sitting at the 1 seed, so they did slide back into that 1 spot. Last week when we were looking at this, we had Minnesota sitting at the 1 because the Lions hadn't played yet. So the Lions are going to get home field throughout the playoffs, as are Kansas City, obviously, which that's been set in stone for a while. The NFC side of the equation, we've got the Vikings traveling to LA to play the Rams. We've got the Commanders traveling to Tampa to play the Bucks, and the Packers traveling to Philly to play the Eagles. On the AFC side, we've got the Chargers traveling to Houston to play the Texans, the Steelers going up against the Ravens in Baltimore, and the Broncos are going to be playing the Bills in Buffalo. So let's hop into our first game here. Our first matchup for Wild Card Weekend has the number 5 Los Angeles Chargers against the number 4 Houston Texans. 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday at NRG Stadium on CBS. Over under is 42.5, and the Chargers are favored by 2.5. Let's start with Carter.
Yeah, I like the Chargers here. They got Dobbins back healthy. Play good defense. Harbaugh's been in the playoffs before. He's a really experienced coach, and Houston's missing a lot of their pass catchers, and they've been really disappointing down the stretch here. So give me the Chargers.
Scott?
Yeah, I think Houston's fading down the stretch. Injuries have caught up with them this season. They've really never shaken off the Tank Dell, just brutal injury. And San Diego seems to be playing well and together. So I'm going San Diego or
Jake?
Chargers.
Yeah, I like the Chargers also. Houston, they've really, injuries have killed them, but still, I haven't liked what they've been doing at all for a while. Chargers, I've been kind of on them all year this year. I've kind of been a big fan of them, and obviously they have my Florida State guys on their defense, so I am on the Chargers minus the 2.5.
Yep, I'm with you guys. Chargers here. Offense is coming on at the right time. They've got one of the best defenses in the league. Texans are mired with injuries. We just talked about that. I think it's just going to be too much for them to overcome. So I am also going to take the Chargers here minus the points. Next up is an AFC North playoff battle as the number 6 Pittsburgh Steelers go up against the number 3 Baltimore Ravens. 8 p.m. kickoff on Saturday at M&T Bank Stadium on Prime Video. That is right. If you want to watch this game, you need an Amazon Prime subscription. Over under in this one is 43.5. Baltimore is favored by 9.5. Jake, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh to cover this. He's playing the team 3 times, like I mentioned earlier, with Lions and Vikings potentially. It's just a tough situation. These teams know each other well. I don't think it'll be that high scoring of a game. I know Baltimore is tough on their home field, but I do like Pittsburgh to get the cover here.
Carter?
Yeah, 9.5 is a lot. I'm definitely high on the Ravens. Pittsburgh's looked terrible lately. I don't know. They're going to go back to Justin Fields this week. It's been rough, but 9.5 divisional game. I'll take the points.
Scott?
Was it Steelers? Was it 4 in a row that they've lost? So they were rolling into the playoffs on a real struggle session. They don't seem to be clicking at any which way. Baltimore, at home with a whole bunch of points on that line there. So let's go Baltimore.
Yeah, like you just mentioned, Steelers are on a 4-game skid. The Ravens are on a 4-game winning streak. Lamar Jackson's been locked in. In my opinion, he's the MVP this year. It's not Josh Allen. It's Lamar Jackson. Ravens defense is also starting to step up at the right time. I know these teams are playing each other for the 3rd time. That's not always as crazy as, when we see in the college football playoffs. And I know this is a significant spread, but I'm going to take Baltimore here at home to cover this 9.5. Sunday games kick off with the number 7 Denver Broncos against the number 2 Buffalo Bills. 1 p.m. kickoff at Highmark Stadium on CBS. Over under in this one is 47.5, and Buffalo is favored by 8.5. Scott, let's start with you.
Yeah, we're getting into big numbers in the last 2 games with Buffalo and Baltimore. That's just a big number, but I think Buffalo is playing really well. They've discovered a running game this year with Cook that seems to have been missing in a lot of their glory days, going back to Thurman Thomas. So I'm on the Buffalo Bills bandwagon for this one.
Carter?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way. I like the Broncos getting the 8.5. Um, I won't say they're gonna pull off the upset. I don't think they will with Josh Allen there, but I really like this Denver team. They play good defense. Uh, Sean Payton can really draw some stuff up on offense. I also like the over here on 47.5. So give me Broncos getting points and the over.
Jake?
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts on this game. I like Denver's defense a lot in this game. An 8.5 seems like a lot to me, so I'm on Denver as well.
I am actually with you guys. Bills are undefeated at home this season. They're averaging a 17-point margin of victory at Highmark. And the Broncos are coming in with a rookie quarterback, but I like what this Denver team has looked like recently. I definitely like this defense. I think Surtain can cause some problems for Josh Allen. I don't know if Denver's going to end up getting a victory here, but I am going to take the 8.5 here. It just seems like the spread's just a little too significant. Next up on the Sunday docket, we have the number 7 Green Bay Packers against the number 2 Philadelphia Eagles. 4:30 p.m. kickoff at Lincoln Financial Field on Fox. The Packers will be without both Jair Alexander and Christian Watkins. Reports are that the Philadelphia Eagles do seem to expect that Jalen Hurts is going to be back in time for the game. That's still up in the open, but it sounds like there's a good possibility he is going to be back in action. Over under in this one is 45.5. Philly is favored by 4.5. Let's start with Jake.
Yeah, so we saw this game at the beginning of the year in Brazil. A little bit different now, as I would say, though, because Green Bay has had kind of some significant injuries. Jordan Love even got hurt last week in the game against the Bears, so I'm not sure exactly how 100% he's even going to be. So you got Hurts coming back from time off, Love with injuries. I think that's why this line is still a little low, because I think Philadelphia should probably be a little bit more of a favorite in this game. These are two teams I hate, but I think I'm going to go with Philly minus the 4.5 just because of what I witnessed with Green Bay last week.
Carter.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Philly's going to get Hurts back. They just waived Ian Book, their emergency quarterback, which gives me a good signal that he's going to be healthy to play. But just because it's 4.5, I'm going to take the Eagles. Like he said, I think it should be a little bit higher. The Packers were super dangerous last year in the playoffs. Love got hot at the right time, but with him being a little banged up, Watson out for the year, and Eagles with Saquon, I think they can lean on the run game. So give me the Eagles.
Scott?
Yeah, I think the injuries are going to be the difference in this game. The Eagles are getting a little healthier, and the Packers are going the other direction. And the injury to Love is sort of a question mark where, like I said, the in-book got released, so the Eagles are fully confident, and Jalen Hurts. So I'm gonna go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I think the matchup to watch in this one's going to be that Eagles rush defense rush offense, versus the Packers rush defense, because both of them are top end in the league. Even with Alexander out, the Eagles are, I think, in the bottom 4 in passing offense. So I don't think that matters as much. The potential injury or not being 100% to Jordan Love does scare me a little bit here. I just keep getting flashbacks of what Philly did when they were in the playoffs last year. I don't see them losing this game, but I for some reason I just feel like this game's going to be closer than what we expect. I'm going to take Green Bay in the 4.5. I do think Philly is likely to win this game. I just think it's probably going to be a 3-point victory. Our last Sunday matchup has the number 6 Washington Commanders against the number 3 Tampa Bay Bucks. 8 p.m. kickoff at the Ray J on NBC. Over under in this one is 50.5. Tampa Bay is favored by 3. Let's go, Scott.
Yeah, I kind of like this one. I like the higher over under. I think it definitely could be an offensive shootout. You got Baker Mayfield having the hot season of his career. Young rookie tossing it out there, and they just seem to be getting it done. I don't go with Washington. I just really like where they're at and what they're doing. And Tampa was kind of my team last year when they beat up on Philadelphia at that first game. But I think this is going to be Washington's year, at least making it through the first round.
Carter?
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I like the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, that young quarterback. I also was on Tampa last year, pulling that upset off, and just that connection between Baker and Mike Evans. But I don't think Tampa's defense is good this year, as good. So give me Washington. Should be a high-scoring affair.
Jake?
Yeah, obviously I like Tampa's offense, and I love seeing that Jalen McMillan's finally started to have last few weeks. He's been on fire, which I love to see. Another one of the dominant Washington trio from last year. But for me, I think the Commanders win this game, and I think the Commanders are going to be the team heading to Ford Field next week. So I'm on the Commanders straight up in this one.
Oh, man, this is the second game in a row. I'm going to be on an island. Tampa won their first matchup this season pretty convincingly. That was the first game of Jaden Daniels' career. So I've gone a little bit back and forth on this one. Washington is a little healthier, but Baker's been in this moment before. He shows up. They played Detroit better than anybody thought they were going to last year. They beat Philly. I just think there's some grit to this Tampa team. They're at home. Give them a little bit of juice there. I don't know if this is going to be a push or not, but I'm going to take Tampa here minus the 3. Right. We've got one playoff matchup on Monday night, and it is the number 5 Minnesota Vikings going up against the number 4 Los Angeles Rams. 8 p.m. kickoff at SoFi Stadium on ESPN and ABC. Over under in this one is 47.5. Vikings come in as the road team, favored by 1.5. Let's start with Scott.
I don't think that enough points. I really think both these teams are going to be able to put some up. And the Vikings, they've just got Jefferson, who I think will make a big difference. They've got a strong running game. Rams, they've got some good pieces. Aaron Donald, I think on their defense made so much difference for them in the playoffs previously. They don't have him to, step up and make that play. So I'm going to go Vikings visitor getting the road victory.
Carter.
I like the Rams in this one. I think they got a nice recipe seeing what the Lions did to Darnold. Heat him up, and he had no answer for that. I always trust Sean McVay to come up with something in the playoffs, get Stafford and Puka and them boys going, and my boy Kyron Williams scores another touchdown this week.
Jake?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, obviously what the Lions just did to Darnold. The Rams have the defensive front. I mean, with the Florida State rookies mixed with Young, and Kobe Turner, like that, they're pretty nasty. I think they're going to be able to get pressure. I think that was definitely the blueprint. The other side to it is KOC was the OC for Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay knows the offense pretty well, what he's running. I think they're going to be able to scheme up some things to stop him. I like the Rams at home here to get the win.
Yeah, other than the Lions, the Rams are the only other team the Vikings have lost to this season. I really, really like this Rams defense and its youth. Stafford at full force. This Rams team is one of the better complete teams in the league, in my opinion. Having both Puka and Kyron Williams out there, I'm high on the Rams right now. I think Minnesota is going to be one and done for being a 14-win team. I am also going to go with the Rams plus the 1.5 to get the outright win. All right, that is it for us. That is our wild card picks. We will be back with you guys next week to talk about. It'll be another combo episode. We'll recover the 2 games that are getting played in college this week, and then we will also obviously recap all of the wild card matchups and take a look forward on the divisional round games. And then we'll talk coaching carousel and see if anything's moved between now and next week. I do think we're going to come at you guys on Wednesday next week instead of Tuesday. We've got a guest that we've been trying to get on, and I think Wednesday is going to fit them a little bit better. So we're going to push it back a day. So be on the lookout for that. But it will be another combination episode. Please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends. We appreciate you guys tuning in. For Jacob Workman, the Old Ninja, and Carter, this is Reese Downing, TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL and NCAA edition. We will see you guys next week.
See you, everyone.